Before I launched Morphus, I spent years researching ingredients and ingredients specifically for women in perimenopause and menopause. And it took me a very long time to decide what products I wanted to launch as part of our Morphus lineup of supplements. And I wanted to make sure that there was research behind it. I wanted to make sure we had efficacious dosages. And I wanted to make sure that they did what they said they're going to do so that the research actually states that it's going to help do this and that it has enough of it in it and it's going to actually make a difference in our lives because so many of you are suffering with symptoms, the 103 plus symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. And then probably after, I think it was like 2 or 3 years, Randy looked at me and she was like, okay, Andrea, you've dotted your I's, you've crossed your T's. You literally have spent so long researching these ingredients that we need to launch our product line. And we did. And that's what we launched with our supplements that we currently have on the website. And one big part of it was to make sure that all of our supplements are third-party tested because I wanted you to feel safe and to know and feel confident knowing that you're buying a product that is not only high quality, but also has what it says is in the bottle, what is on the label that actually has it in the bottle. So today's guest is he's going to talk to us all about testing and third-party testing and lab testing for supplements and also other things as well, it's really eye-opening. And he's an amazing guy. I met him last year at a conference, and I think that you're going to really love today's interview. So before I bring him in, I'm going to do a quick intro to who I am. If you're new to the podcast, I'm Andrea Donsky. I'm a nutritionist for almost 20 years, menopause educator, and menopause researcher. And I'm the co-founder of wearemorphus.com, a company that helps to empower you to take control of your health and symptoms with nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, and research. Today, I'm speaking with Jason Mulligan. He's the president of Eurofins Botanicals Testing, Inc. He leads the Botanicals and dietary supplements commercial team and is intent on delivering world-class service, unmatched reliability, and innovative offerings to the dietary supplements industry. Jason began his career with Eurofins as the business unit manager of Eurofins Supplement Analysis Center. Jason's prior experience includes leadership roles with the U.S. Army and Blue Shield of California. He graduated with an MBA from Oxford University and earned a Bachelor of Science from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He's a combat veteran and received the Bronze Star Medal and Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal with Combat V, Valor, for his combat leadership. Jason brings a lifelong passion for optimal health, wellness, and personal growth to his work at Eurofins. He's a master Sattva yoga instructor and breathwork facilitator, offering techniques to build inner resiliency, emotional regulation, and fundamental well-being. He's also a proud husband and father of 2. Now, here's Jason. Welcome to Menopause Reimagined, Jason.
Thanks so much, Andrea. So great to be here with you.
I am very happy to have you here because you and I, we've been talking about doing this interview for a year. It'll be a year next month where we met and at NBJ. And I was like, I have to have you on our podcast and we have to have a partnership with your company. So we're going to start from the beginning. We're talking today about third-party testing and the importance of testing supplements so that when what you're taking is actually amazing quality. So Jason, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are and what you do at Eurofins, and then what is Eurofins?
Sure. Thanks so much, Andrea. Yeah, it's been a year, but I would argue that that's an appropriate amount of time to really vet quality, integrity, and get to understand all the nuances of all the things that we both do and what you offer to your, customers and to your network and people that you guide, mentor, and teach. So at Eurofins, I lead our botanicals testing business and then run a couple of other labs that are focused in microbiology, probiotics, and we're a highly networked company. So my scope and influence really spreads across all of our dietary supplement testing. And in addition to the focus on the actual testing and analysis, I just have a deep passion for human beings and leadership and do a lot of work inside the company around mentorship, training, and talent development.
So Eurofins is the largest testing lab in the world, is it not?
It is.
Or one of them, at least.
Yeah, I think it is. It's accurate to say it's the largest, and that's because we have many different scopes across environmental testing, clinical testing, pharmaceutical, and then dietary supplements, which from an organizational perspective at Eurofins supplements falls within our food testing, and which is also true for how the regulations are written in the United States. What's really interesting is even though those divisions are clear on a piece of paper, because of the way that the dietary supplements industry is evolving, particularly in the US, we're starting to see a lot of crossover into the clinical testing side and even the environmental testing side. And the reasons for that, I can give you a couple examples. One is on the clinical side, there are a lot of brands and emerging players that are giving their customer base a chance to test themselves, do blood tests or other analyses to understand where deficiencies might be or to get their microbiome tested. And then the idea would be that that informs what supplementation or dietary changes they might make. And there's debate around how efficacious that is and where, we really are ready for in terms of a personalized approach. But that's leading to more conversations and even cross-business opportunities between the clinical testing side and the supplements testing side. All of this, and the example of meat's a great one because it points to where there's increased erosion of trust between consumers and brand owners. And I think it's where we're going is for brands like yours that do engender trust with their customers to say, we're willing to lean in all the way and not just rely on paperwork, but actually go the full distance to understand that what we're offering you from every step of the way throughout the supply chain and our packaging, et cetera, has been vetted to meet a certain degree of quality and integrity. And that, I think, you can point to the brands that are doing that are the ones that are going to be around in 10 years versus those that are looking to make a quick buck and take advantage of a consumer who may not do the research or may not be aware of what to look for when buying these types of products.
I come from a very unique advantage standpoint because I come from the health and wellness space. I already knew so much going into this. And one thing I promised myself, and because I wrote Undrunk Your Junk Food in 2011, it came out in 2011, I wrote in 2010, I already knew, I'm already for me, it's about what are we putting into our body through the ingredients. And the book was all about ingredients in our food. So what I did was I literally took my experience and my expertise for all these years and now brought it to the supplements. So one of the things when we launched Morphus supplements, I was like, I am so strict with what I would ever put out and the quality and what are the ingredients that are used in our supplements, not only just from a standpoint of general health, but also for women specifically in perimenopause and menopause. And there are ingredients out there, and this isn't so much of a testing thing, but there are ingredients out there that are made for, or that you have the research for women in menopause that I would never use in our products because they can, cause problems with liver health down the road. So I'm so particular from the quality standpoint, from all standpoints. So thank you for saying that, because putting ingredients like titanium dioxide or seed oils like sunflower oil or soybean oil into our products or food coloring, ladies, for all of you listening, it will never happen with any Morphus supplements. So I just want you to know that. Okay, so let's go, Jason, into the importance of testing supplements. So I love that you talked about the other things that you're testing for, and that is so important. And hopefully brands will catch on, because it does start with the brand. Because as a consumer, right? So I play both, I'm on both sides. I buy products and then I also sell products. But as a consumer, it's very hard to know what's in products. Like you said, companies can't make certain claims because they can get into a lot of trouble. There's lawsuits happening if you make a claim, even with natural. I remember years ago, companies were being called out and sued over using the term natural on their products. So brands have to be super careful. But as a consumer, you're bombarded with things, and it's hard to know, what is, you don't know every single brand or who's behind every single brand for products you're buying. So I'm happy to see that you're going to talk to brands, because it really has to start with the brands caring.
That's right. And the way that the law is written, so just celebrating 30 years around this time, the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act of 1994 really established what I'll call the rules of the game for what's required from an FDA compliance perspective. That was evolved in 2007 with the passing of the CGMP's Current Good Manufacturing Practices, which established really the documentation, the quality systems, quality management systems that needed to be in place. But the way the law is written is that ultimately it's the brand owner's responsibility to comply with the law. And so FDA establishes it and enforces it. But the reality is, dietary supplements in the United States is a $60 billion industry. And the number of FDA agents that are out there enforcing this who also have med devices, all these other things, is really, really small. And so that's why we see most recently the big retailers such as Amazon increasing the requirements in order to sell on their platform. All of that, I mean, it's the intentions are right, but it's like that has to happen because, well, we know that not all brand owners are approaching what they're selling, what they're offering to their customer base with the highest integrity and having their, eyes switched on to, is what I'm claiming on my label and in my product actually there
Exactly.
in the levels that I claim? Is it free of contaminants? First of all, have I established specifications and am I testing to those specifications? All of that are basics that a lot of consumers innocently don't know to look for or think about. There's a lot of blind trust because how would you know? It's all just in a label, and you go and buy these things either online or at a store where you might be at a natural foods shop getting your, organic meat or whatever you're buying, pick up your, menopause or women's health supplement or whatever it is you're grabbing, and you're not really thinking about that a lot different than the other products in your cart. And so in that case, it's the trust is really lent or created through like that shop or that organization. So when you see a Morphus label or any label where there's high integrity, it's like that should equal something. And so that's where third-party testing comes in. And there's some really good labs out there. Eurofins is the largest from a network perspective, offers the broadest range of testing. And then we just have really deep expertise. We've got people that have been doing this for this type of work for their entire careers and live it, love it, own it. And it's like we have a lot of focus on evolving with the industry, which you and I know, and the consumers know that this is a very fast-paced industry where delivery formats, the innovation comes in all types of ways of absorption rates, maximum absorption, those types of things. And we learn every day where there's new research done on different botanicals, different blends. So the lab is only as good as its willingness to evolve and innovate at the pace of innovation in the industry, which is really rapid. Most of the time that doesn't happen. There's a lag. And so this is where the relationship is everything, where the brand owners and in a lot of cases, the leading manufacturers need to be assertive and communicate with the lab and say, okay, here's where we're moving. This is what's happening. We're evolving our delivery format. This is what we've learned through our research. And to have that conversation to say, now that this is changing, we want to go make sure that our potency or strength specifications maintains through the shelf life of this product, or we've changed suppliers and we want to make sure that the quality of this product in terms of if it's naturally sourced, that the levels of pesticides, other environmental contaminants, residual solvents, whatever's relevant to that particular ingredient or how it's put into its final delivery format meets your degree of quality and integrity. And that's what's great in talking to you about this for the last year, at least, is that this is, you're the brand owner. Testing is complicated. The particular test being performed suitable for that particular ingredient and delivery format, it becomes a complex web of decisions where if you don't have a tight relationship with the lab, there's a lot that can be missed in translation, or it's like, you're now relying on the lab to do the thinking for you, which we do in most cases. But if you're a brand owner who's leaning into that relationship, you're going to get what you want. You're going to get what you need at the end of that, and then have that follow-up conversation to say, how did we do? How are the C of A's looking? Is that, and it's amazing as the owner, you're not outsourcing that to a quality person on your team. You're saying, I'm the one who's saying, yes, this is great. This matches what I expected from sourcing through manufacturing to the shelf. That's what right looks and feels like from an ownership perspective.
So just, you mentioned COA, so just C of A. So just so people know what that means, can you explain what a C of A is?
It's essentially our product. So when you send testing to a laboratory, which in most cases it's coming from a brand or a manufacturer, sometimes the ingredient supplier, when they submit the testing, and let's just take a simple example, you're doing a vitamin C test from Primrose or some natural source, that you submit the testing, you have a certain label claim, 100% daily value, whatever that is in terms of milligrams for vitamin C. The certificate analysis is the official piece of paperwork that tells you what methodology was used, whether that's, you know, an official methodology from AOAC or USP or one of those sources. They can be really simple sometimes to understand, or if you're doing a significant amount of testing, can be quite complex. That's the piece of paperwork that matters. That's the thing that tells you, okay, this has been run by an ISO accredited laboratory, which means the laboratory went through a number of quality, standardized checks to just make sure that everything is done to the highest levels from a quality perspective, that the analyst who ran it was trained a certain way. The methodology was fit for purpose for that particular ingredient, product type, matrix, the format. And that's sort of your license to say, yep, okay, this all checks out, matches what we've set in our specifications. And I, as the owner, have peace of mind that myself, my family, my friends can take this product and it's met a certain standard. So that's, what's interesting is in the United States over the last, let's say, 5 years from the passing of the Farm Bill, interestingly, it was CBD and hemp that really brought this acronym C of A into the more of common language, because the FDA didn't decide to go ahead and make an official regulation stance on CBD. So it's in this sort of gray zone still. So what happened was the states moved in, and the states created a patchwork of requirements, some of which included having a QR code on label. So in certain states, if you go to a Whole Foods or wherever you buy your supplements and buy CBD, some of those states have a QR code that goes to a C of A. And it's with mixed results. Some people use it, some people care, some people are educated on it. Most people aren't. So when they see that, it's like, okay, they're not going to know whether to ask these questions of, was the methodology fit for purpose? What am I even reading with this long list of pesticides? Is this good, bad, or indifferent? How do I know? That's a thing that it's an opportunity for the labs and for the industry to get to, what does a lay person C of A look like? And that's something where, you know, the conversation's evolving in terms of how that can be empowering for customers to be able to vet and make that call to say, yeah, this product is better than this one, or I'm going with this product, not just because it was tested, but that I've actually seen that C of A, and you're talking about yours, and you know, we've looked into it specifically. So it's like, yeah, that's probably as good as you can get. But it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I think more and more customers are gonna want to know that the product has been tested, but it's not enough to just say, yes, third party tested. I think you've got to do more to educate consumers and get them to, there is a long list of filters that get to, was it the right testing? Was the lab credible? And there are some really great labs. Eurofins, of course, I'm biased, but I would tell you, you know, if I was a brand owner, there's certain labs you want to stay away from for certain reasons. And there's this phenomenon called dry labbing, which unfortunately happens, where you can get a C of A and that ingredient never went through an instrument. That's the most
What?
ineffective, of course.
Oh my
There's,
God. I mean, I'm not surprised, but what the, like, see, but this is the kind of thing where you're like, you really need to know the people or know the brand. Like for me, and it's hard though, because not all brands have, you know, a lot of brands are like publicly owned. Like you can't actually access the people. So for the consumers, for our ladies who are listening, you know, they're like, okay, well, I want to know for this supplement that I'm buying, is it, you know, is this something that I should be putting in my body? How would the average person know if they can't actually communicate with the owners of a company or get some information from their customer service or whatever?
I think you have to care enough to do your research and engage with the brand and look at all of the different considerations that are important to you. So if I look at your products, like I see fibrous in the background, it's like, okay, first it's your logo, right? And it's like you've made an association with your brand that's synonymous with trust, right? And quality. So it's
Yeah.
like that's important. And then for your customer base, you've been putting out educational materials
Yeah.
on clean and all those things. So it's you're doing the types of things that are around education and information and giving more to your customers to say, this is what I care about as a person and why I've embarked on this entrepreneurial journey. If it was easy, you wouldn't do it, right? But you're doing it because you care.
It's not
And
easy,
so
for sure not.
I think it's certain things like that where it's like, well, if you're walking down the supplements aisle in Whole Foods or Sprouts, well, at a starting point, those are organizations that care. They have standards. So there's certain degrees of trust that are just out of the gates there. But then I'll tell you, there's significant variance. And you're right. Especially in the United States, there's a lot of merger and acquisition activity that happens around supplements. 5-10 years ago, a lot of the big consumer packaged goods brands sort of laughed at the dietary supplement industry. It still had a little bit of that like snake oil frequency to it. Those days are long gone. And the biggest owners in the supplements industry are private equity and the big CPG brands. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of, to say, okay, what does that equal from a quality perspective? Do these private equity owners, how much do they care about quality? If you know a little bit about private equity, you know, okay, well, they got to make money. And I think this is where educating it's kind of a there's a friction point for me saying consumers, but it's like your health conscious, people who buy your supplements and who are really care about their health and wellness, we'll say for lack of a better term, or people that are looking for this value, to really consider what does it take to get to, I'm willing to buy this product because I know it has been tested thoroughly. The brand cares enough to showcase that. There's a degree of transparency that passes my personal test. And like you, I'm in this space on the analytical testing side, but I'm an athlete. I take supplements and there's a high amount of discernment that I've got to go through. And yeah, of course I have unique access to certificates of analysis, but a lot of times that's not enough. I want to know that there's an ethical approach to sourcing and that there's people behind the brand that really, really care and that like they're with peace of mind would take their own supplements or would give it, to their friends and family because it's been vetted to a degree that meets all these different criteria.
I always say that. I said, when we launched Morphus, Randy and I were like, we take these ourselves. Like these are our supplements. So we would recommend it to our family and friends. So it's so funny that you just said that because that's like my criteria for any product that I would launch. Like it would be a product that I would take or recommend. It's funny. You're talking about, having to make money. I remember when I first started, I met with some co-packers and one of them kind of really opened up my eyes to the whole supplement industry is I sat across the desk from him and he looked at me and he's like, okay, so are we going with price or quality? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, 90% of the brands that sit across from me say that they don't care about the quality. They just want to hit the price point. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what's the purpose of doing it? He's like, you have no idea. And I'm like, no. Quality, because if it doesn't work, then I'm not here to just make a quick buck. I'm here to actually change women's lives, and it has to have the dosage that that we say is in the bottle, and then it also has to be based on research. Like I'm not just going to throw things in. I remember I learned the term fairy dust very early on, and I'm like, fairy dust, what's that? And it's like, well, that's when you say you have things in there and try to say you have a marketing claim for it, but it actually doesn't have enough of it to make a difference. And I'm like, yeah, that's never going to happen with Morphus products. Like we have to have if we're going to say it's going to do something based on, well, we're based in Canada, even though we don't sell it in Canada right now, we only sell them in the US. And that has to do a lot with Health Canada and NPNs, but we're going to get here hopefully by 2025, I'm hoping. But we come with very strict regulations. I would want to hear your take because you've been in this industry for so long. You've probably seen it all. So I wanted to hear some of the stories that you have seen from supplement brands that you test, like that have fairy dust or don't have the amount that they say that's in the bottle. Like what are some things that our listeners need to be aware of?
Yeah, and just to give more language to fairy dusting is for your customers and those that are listening that are looking to increase their education is just look at the minimally effective dose. And there's really great resources like examine.com. I go there often because it links to a lot of the research that's been done, let's just say for ashwagandha, something like that that's increasing in popularity. Look at what the minimal effective doses are. And a lot of that's published, it's out there, it's available. And then look at some of the, unfortunately, some of the products that are soaring in popularity. If you look at the ingredients and it's got 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 plus ingredients. I mean, if that's your thing, that's great. And it certainly is for a lot of people because you just look at the sales and it's pretty easy to figure out. Go on Amazon, look at the subscriptions, look at some of the podcast sponsorships where some of these popular products are flying off the shelves. Think about from a quality perspective for all of your listeners, just imagine yourself in your shoes right now, Andrew's shoes, of what it takes to ensure that you're sourcing each ingredient is done in the highest ethical, highest standard, highest quality way. Wow, is that hard when you start to increase to, dozens of ingredients, but then you get to, okay, well, this is a proprietary blend of 20 to 30 different, botanicals and other things in there. How do you know that any of that is worthwhile for your body? And that's something where I would just say, it might be, maybe there's some value to it. I've learned in the time I've been in this industry to be skeptical. Start to think about it differently. And it's not just this pop a couple of pills and then, go about your life, but it's like, slow it down. Do your research. Understand when you're taking this thing, you don't want to compromise your own health or just have no regard for where this ingredient came from. All of the hands that touched it along the way, there's a whole story there. There's a powerful narrative. And so I think that the key thing I've learned along the way is it feels a little bit negative to just say, be skeptical. I think it's more of be aware, become more attentive, be mindful. And that means you got to go slower. It means you might actually take fewer supplements so that you can do greater research and even be more holistically aware of what it is you're supplementing. And I haven't followed enough of your personal work, but I suspect what you would tell your customers is to be really intentional about your diet and then supplement in a wise way, particularly for your demographic of certain aged women, to say, this is the whole package and this is part of an entire lifestyle. And that to me means probably slowing things down, being much more deliberate about what ingredients you're putting in your body and why. And when you start to come at that, it all for me boils down to relationship. And that's not fast. That's not cheap. That's not, sometimes it's not even convenient. Now, the whole purpose of having a supplement brand is to increase the convenience and access to these types of products.
I call them, when you have like 80 plus or whatever ingredients in a supplement, I call them the kitchen sink formulas. And it's hard to get something that has, then sometimes they'll have like a hero ingredient that has enough, but then you also have to keep in mind something that I learned, and most of our supplements, by the way, are single ingredients. And then we have Sleep Us, which has 4 branded ingredients. So we're very intentional in terms of not having it. Like, obviously we don't have a multivitamin that's going to have more in it, right? So we don't have something like that yet, and there's nothing wrong if you have one that has a lot more ingredients, but you want to make sure, again, it's in the efficacious dosages. But there's only a certain amount of space that you could put into a capsule. So you have to keep in mind, like, maybe that you'd have to take 7 or 8 capsules of something if it has like a kitchen sink. So if they tell you to take 1 capsule of a product that has 80 ingredients, please be mindful, because chances are you are not getting the efficacious dosages in it. And that's something that we're very particular about. We really want to make sure that you're getting what the goal is to help you. I mean, the women that we speak to, they're suffering, many of them are suffering with 103 plus symptoms, right? So we want to help them feel better. We want them to have a menopausal journey that is that doesn't have symptoms. Like we're trying to help them not have those symptoms. So it's important that they actually work and they're efficacious. It's like, so for me, that's number one. And I'm happy that you and I connected a year ago, because when we did connect, I was like, no, we need to have a partnership with Eurofins, because for me, I want to know that I'm with the biggest testing lab in the world. And then I had a chance to come there in December, which was really amazing, and tour the lab. So it's not like we're just working together. I actually was there and got a tour of the facility, which was unbelievable. Like that was such an incredible experience.
Thanks so much for coming to. That was fun. And we encourage all of our clients and anyone who's like, hey, yeah, we're interested in going, to the next level. Something that I want to say too is like, why am I a supplement user? Because we know enough now that the way that our agriculture has evolved from pretty much mid 20th century to the present, it's like, it's not working. And refreshingly, there's a movement back towards smaller, local, regenerative, that's happening. And a lot of people are like,
Yeah,
done with their jobs, moving to, off grid and starting farms. And it's like, it's kind of cool. Like that's definitely happening. But at the same time, the mineral content, the quality of soil, like it has hit a point where you got to be supplementing. And so but you have to do it in a way where it's like this info age that we're in, or AI age, where, a lot of people are self-care, becoming their own doctor. You got to become, so there's a lot of pressure to get it right. And that's where I think the way that you're navigating and really guiding and stewarding, and I would even say tending for your
I like that.
buyers, is like you're doing a lot of legwork to say what I'm trying to do in partnering with organizations like Eurofins and the others in your ecosystem, is convey a degree of trust and demonstrate that, so that you don't have to do, L through Z research and all these different things, because it's daunting. Most of your customers are probably, mothers or business owners or employees. They're doing a lot of other things where it's like, yeah, they're super busy. It's hard to, it's damn near impossible to get it right for all these aspects of our health, wellness, finances, the environment. It's like, it doesn't end with the number of things. So I think what's important is that there's brand owners that are taking the steps, they're doing the things, and they're communicating it. And those are the ones that are going to make a difference and be around for a while.
And I was so happy to see when we got our C of A's that we like passed with flying colors. Not that I was surprised, but I'm like, yay, and that's where it's like that peace of mind for me, that we know that we have an incredibly quality product. But I also remember years ago, and I've worked with enough brands over the years, hundreds and hundreds of brands, where you'd hear like these crazy stories that, one batch of something that, came into contact with something that was tested, they had to swap it all out. So it was, when I got those C of A's, I was like, yeah, awesome. So now we could say that we're working with Eurofins, we're partnering with them, and our products are high quality. They're what we say they are. Can you, I don't know, I asked you before, but I hope you're comfortable with it, but can you share some experiences of what you saw over the years, like what you've seen from brands some supplement brands in particular that you've tested, that just like they can be simple examples of like, wasn't enough of the product in it, or that they had on the label, like just simple things. I'd love to give our listeners kind of some insight behind the scenes from a testing lab.
Yeah, I'll do an even better and just point anyone listening to look at some of the research coming out of the National Center for Natural Products Research. So this is part FDA, I believe part USDA funded. It is the world's premier botanical research center that's housed within the University of Mississippi, and it's been there since the mid-1970s. Every year they run the International Conference on the Science of Botanicals. It's amazing presentation of the most cutting edge research that's going on in botanicals. But it's a long acronym, but what the NCNPR, National Center for Natural Products Research, does is they'll go buy like 50 to 70 different products and then test them. And really what they're starting to look for at the most basic level is, does this product contain what's on the label? And in some of their most recent research that's been published, this is all publicly available, you can Google it, go find it, some 80% of products don't have within them what's on the label. 80%.
80%.
So that's where it's like, you know, and it's not to like sound the alarm bell, but it's like, that's a pretty startling statistic. And it's
That's
like, so
huge.
what NCMPR is doing, I mean, that's not what Eurofins is in business to do. We're not the police. We're not the, you know, the good cop, bad cop. We're going to tell you unbiased as a third party lab,
Yeah.
here's in your product. It's up to you to go do the right thing or not, but here's what's going on. And NCMPR puts this research out. So to start with, does this product contain what's on the label? And then getting into from on the spectrum of like, that's kind of a foul. Now we're moving more into flagrant fouls of, oh, it actually has active pharmaceutical ingredients in it. There's been substitutions that have happened. And
Right.
even when you're a 10 out of 10 and care so much about quality, you have to do your due diligence as a brand owner, which, you know, like you're saying and showcasing to your customers is like, that's the degree you've gone through. Very few do that. Almost, you know, the vast majority would say, I'm just going to rely on my manufacturers because they're highly vetted. You went in, had the conversations. Do we optimize price? Do we optimize quality? That garnered some laughs, but it was like, I mean, we want to take this stuff, right? So quality matters. Even when you do that, you have to spot check, right? And you have to verify. You have to say, okay, do I know in my gut, in my bones, that we've gotten this right? We're not just going to rely on physical or digital, you know, certificates of analysis, because you know, that's one thing that's great, but you've got to verify it. And even when you know it's right, you still have to go to that degree. And that's why.
And you're talking about, sorry, Jason, you're talking about testing the final product, you mean, not just the ingredients. Is that what you mean by going that extra
Yeah,
mile?
I mean, doing the final product is the right call. You could do ingredients along the pathway, or just you know, ask for information from ingredient suppliers all the way, and really vet. And you know, I know that's the degree that you care about and have gone through,
Yeah,
but it's
final
like,
product for us is what I care about.
totally
Obviously,
like,
the ingredients too, obviously, but the final product, I want to make sure that what everybody's putting in their bodies exactly is that high quality.
that's it. And so what I tell, just from an example, when Amazon first started doing their increased requirements for sellers on their platform to sell on their platform, must have been 2 years ago now, whatever it was, that what ended up happening was a significant number of brands started showing up to Eurofins and other labs for the very first time. And what we saw was nothing short of scary, because it was like, well, not only did they not have no connection or relationship to actually doing testing, which is the law, it's a requirement. It's
How can
not like
they
a
not
nice
test? That's crazy to me.
the regulations are clear, the enforcement's challenging. I'll just put it like that. And so, you know, this is where US based customers can demand more. And it's essentially FDA needs to be better funded. If the FDA has greater funding, then they're going to have more enforcers out there to be able to say, you know, who's doing what and whatever. But what we ended up seeing at the labs were, we had instances where products that had, let's just say it was in the sexual performance category, which like there's certain categories where it's like,
Yeah, like weight. I know weight loss is a big one, and then the sexual performance is another big one,
and
right?
bodybuilding, unfortunately, but
Bodybuilding, yeah.
those sort of categories where it's kind of like, you know, you just look at the marketing, if the branding is like kind of cheesy or looks in a way where it's like, it's more for, you know, appealing to like super big, fast muscles, or like being, you know, more whatever in the bedroom, be skeptical. But what we started to see was products that had significant multiples of the active pharmaceutical ingredient of actual drugs coming through in products that were marketed as supplements. So just be discerning, like, you know, I don't know if I should say this or not, but maybe you shouldn't be buying your supplements from gas stations. Like, look at where you're buying, like be smart about it, and like do your research, vet, buy from trusted sources. And you know, who's going to argue that it isn't ultra convenient to buy off of Amazon.com? It just, they've made it where it's like you know, you can buy with a chip in your hand. It's like ridiculously easy, right, to buy. But be discerning. And you know, even though it's like tempting to buy certain products from there, it's like, that's great, make sure the brand really cares. And now Amazon's raised the bar. We'll see how it all plays out because, you know, as you might expect, there's a lot of it's not controversy, but there's a lot of tension in the industry of like, why do retail platforms need to add an additional layer of, you know, regulatory compliance when the FDA has its compliance? And it's like, well,
I think
how
it's
good is
great.
it?
I
Most
think,
people think it's, well, a lot of brands think it's great that are doing the right thing. And so
yeah.
it's, I'm in a stance where I'm like, hey, I applaud Amazon. The efforts are there. And we know that they're really leaning into this to increase trust, customer confidence that what they're buying on the platform has been vetted to a certain standard. Like, who's going to argue with that? That's a beautiful thing.
I do the research. For me, you know, we have email follow-ups when somebody buys a product from us. I love to say I hold your hand because I'm sending you an email with links to the research as to why you should be taking this or why you are taking it. And specifically for women in perimenopause and menopause. So that's where for me, it's all about education. I don't want you taking 100 different things. I want you to take what your body needs. To your point about the products that have 80 different ingredients, though, I understand why women want or people want to do that because it's convenient, right? It's one pill. I'm doing one thing. But if it's not helping you, listen to your body. Maybe it is. Maybe it's helping you. But if it's not, just listen to your body and maybe look at some other things that are more specific for what your specific needs are. And I used to be more adventurous when I was younger. Before I was in menopause, I was so adventurous. I would try pretty much anything. Now I am so discerning what I put in my body, which is why I'm like, yep, I put in Morphus like my products, and I take other supplements too. But I'm like, now I'm very careful with what I put in my body because one thing that I could take can actually, I guess start a cascade of other things for me. Or so I'm trying to be very mindful of how much and what I am putting in my body when it comes to supplements. And to go back to what you said before, yes, I'm always about leading with nutrition and lifestyles, exercise, managing stress, movement. All of that is crucial. Number one, number two, like they're kind of equal. Then we look at supplementing our diet because we can't out supplement nutrition. It has to be. And it is that toolbox of ingredients. And then you also have the hormones part. So for those of you who are taking hormones, it's all together. So you could take your supplements with hormones. You could take, make sure that you're eating properly, make sure that you're exercising, movement, managing stress. All of that those are all tools in the toolbox that can be used. But again, always listen to your body, speak to a healthcare practitioner if you're on medications, because certain supplements can mix with medications. You want to be mindful for your body and do what feels right for you. If it feels right for you, great. If it doesn't, then don't take it or look for another one, right? One of my biggest things is you mentioned melatonin before, and I'm a massive fan of melatonin for women in perimenopause and menopause, and especially menopause, because our sleep is all interrupted. And there was a great term that I don't know the name of the doctor, but he called it melatonopause because we don't make melatonin once we're in menopause and over 50, pretty much, very, very small amounts. So we need to get that. Like I highly recommend, and what I looked at when I looked at the research, getting it from an external source can really help with our sleep and help us to stay asleep. So one of our products is called Sleep Us, which I formulated with melatonin, a sustained release melatonin. But if melatonin doesn't work for you, then it's not the right product for you. So you always have to listen to your body, right? So there's nothing that's going to be for everyone. So listen to yourself. You're the captain of your ship. You know what works for you. If it works for you, amazing. If it doesn't, then try another one, or maybe try another brand. Maybe the melatonin that we use isn't right for you. Maybe try another one. Just supplements take time. And also the brand matters. So, and the dosage matters. So there's so many different things that come into play when we talk about supplements. So I think that's a great point that you brought up. And I think that's an important point to make, that just because one thing doesn't work, experiment, listen to your body, experiment, try different things, but always go back to what the research is. And is it okay for us in this phase of life? That's the important part, at least from for how I approach it.
That's beautiful. Yeah, what I really hear when you share all that is giving permission to be discerning, giving permission to pay closer attention, and really have like dignity and respect for what goes into your body. I was in a conversation, was out in Salt Lake City last week at a natural products event, and was in conversation with a career professor, natural products chemist, and we were talking about the microbiome, and he's like, really when you're eating for two, yourself, which is a whole philosophical thing, and your microbiome. And that's fascinating when you start to think about that it's like you might feel better with, your mocha latte or whatever it is you're putting in, but it's like, what is the effect from a microbiome perspective, which starts as soon as you ingest something? So it's like, once you start to see what's happening from a blood sugar response and the rich or let's say weaker microbiome environment that you're creating purely by your diet and environmental factors, that starts to change things. And it's like, now you get to a certain quality of mood and different aspects of how you feel, how you show up moment to moment when you're eating for two. And I'm sharing this because it's relevant to the conversation, but it was really powerful when I heard that, because I was like, wow, that's kind of a game changer shift in terms of individual approach towards nutrition, supplementation, and optimal health and wellness.
But before we end, a couple things. So number one, is there anything that we didn't talk about today? I know we talked about a lot, but is there anything that you would love to leave our audience with that we didn't get into, that you would like to say, hey, this is one last thing I want to say?
Honestly, just to echo your message. I mean, you're offering permission, you're saying you're giving guidance to really study, vet, understand what you're offering, the kinds of education, the integrity of the products. Here I am as the primary laboratory and laboratory relationship that you've chosen. And for anyone, most people will be unfamiliar with Eurofins because we mostly work B2B. So look at the company, look at the scale and depth and history of the organization, particularly for dietary supplement testing. And it's just a degree of credibility. And I think that I would want to do that if I was someone who didn't really understand. Laboratories are tricky to get. It's kind of, a little bit of an opaqueness. And that's kind of fun and interesting to get to. Wow, you've really taken your time and invested in this partnership. So just echoing those points of generating more aware, attentive, health conscious people out there. So echo those points and just say, for those that are trying and figuring out, I applaud you. I'm walking the journey with you, and keep going.
Jason, how could our listeners learn more about Eurofins?
Just go online. We're on all the social platforms, but primarily just do a Google search, Eurofins dietary supplement testing, and you'll read probably more information that you'd want to see, but there's some good case studies on there. There's some good information. Yeah. And, again, our primary customers, our clients are brand owners, manufacturers, contract manufacturers, ingredient suppliers. And we work with, a broad group of customers throughout the world. Here I'm sitting in, middle of the US, and most of the customers I engage with are either in the United States, Canada, that kind of thing. And you can just find more out about the company and understand the degree of scale, depth, expertise, and level of excellence and quality that goes into this organization that's been operating for over 35 years as Eurofins, and then some of the larger labs that are Eurofins now that came to the company through acquisition were some of the first laboratories to ever do any kind of analytical testing development on vitamins, minerals, and now dietary supplements. So you're in good company and in good hands of having deep expertise for this type of work.
Thank you so much for doing this today.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure. Good to see you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Jason from Eurofins. And I'm just going to reiterate it, is that it is so important for me that our Morphus supplements are top quality, and that they're products that I take myself and recommend to family and friends, and to you, our incredible listeners and customers. So if you've never tried a Morphus supplement, I'd love you to take a look at our shop, and you can peruse it. If you have questions, you could reach out to me and my customer service team. We are here to help you. We are here to answer questions as much as we can, of course, and we want to make sure that you are well educated and taken care of. So if you did enjoy the interview, please share it because the more you share shows you care. And please leave a review because when you leave a review, it actually pushes out our podcast to more people. So I'd be super grateful if we can help more women who are going through perimenopause and menopause. As always, I appreciate you spending the last bit of time with me. I know there's a lot you could be doing, but you chose to spend it with me. And for that, I am grateful. I'll see you at the next interview.